Welcome to The Big Picture. I'm Phil Arno. A few weeks ago, I had Lynn Dixon on this program. Lynn is running for Erie County Executive. At the time, I described politics as one of the roughest games in town. Now, in my career, I've been shot at, I've run into burning buildings, I've been attacked by a gang member and been in a helicopter crash. But by comparison, I still think that being a politician makes my experiences a little like playing touch football instead of the real thing. Well, my guest this week on The Big Picture is a veteran of that blood sport called politics. Not only has he survived the process, but he's been successful at it for a number of years. He's been our county executive for 2 terms now and is seeking his 3rd term for that office. He's taken time from a busy schedule, and I'd like to thank him for coming into the show. County Executive Mark Poloncarz, thanks for being here. I know it's been a busy schedule, and I welcome you to the show.
It's my pleasure to be here, Phil. Look forward to a good conversation.
Well, it will be informative, I hope. I'm going to ask you some general questions. The first question I want to ask you is kind of a soft one, and that is, what's the best part about being county executive?
Well, you get to have an impact on people's lives. Erie County is geographically the same size as the state of Rhode Island, and it has a population that's greater than 5 states. So it's a very important position. You can't take it lightly. I, every day, deal with policy issues that affect people's lives. And so there's things that I can do, there's policies I can put in place and implement that are going to make people's lives better. And that really is the best thing associated with the job.
What's your biggest headache as county executive?
I don't think we have enough time to talk about all the headaches associated with county executive. There are so many important things that you do on a day-to-day basis trying to represent the people of Erie County that there's never enough time to do it and there's never enough money. For example, one thing I know we're going to talk about, and we always talk about when I go with people right now, is roads. Erie County actually, as a government, owns more roads than the state of Rhode Island, Delaware, and Hawaii each have in total. So we got 1,200 centerline miles of roads, or 2,400 lane miles of roads. That's not all the roads in Erie County, because the city of Buffalo owns roads. We don't count those in our inventory. Towns own roads, the state owns roads. Those aren't counted in our inventory, but we always hear about those issues. So we're out there trying to repair the roads. We've been investing in the last few years more than $400 million combined between capital and operating, but it's never enough. People say you need to spend more money, you need to do more. At the same time, people are like, but lower my taxes. So it's that, how do you balance it? How do you balance and ensure that you're putting enough money into the road infrastructure? We live in the Northeast, we get the freeze thaws. It's not like living in Florida or South Carolina where they don't have to deal with that kind of stuff. So we deal with the potholes, we deal with the infrastructure issues. At the same time, I've got people say, hey, you got to lower my taxes. So trying to find that balance is a difficult thing because you not only have to pay for roads, you have to pay for parks, you have to pay for libraries, the Department of Health, our emergency services to help guide us through the storms. All the things that people associate with government, we still have to pay for, yet at the same time, nobody wants to pay for it. So that's always a tough headache, and it's a balancing act. But one that we've been able to successfully do the last few years because we've ended up every year with a balanced budget.
Well, every year or every cycle this time when people are running for office, you get to talk about the politics of it and policies. This time of year, nationally and in the state, there's been kind of a sea change in the way politics have been playing out, okay? And I'm not quite sure whether I can connect this locally into you, but I'd like your opinion. With the way the Democrat Party has been changing, you know, you have Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and there's been a movement to the left, the Social Democrats, and with the Democrats in Albany now being in control. There's been a few things that have been passed that now are moving more liberal and more to the left. In your opinion, and you've been a member of the party for a long time, so you've seen changes, is that something that drags you in one direction or another? What's it like in your opinion, to be a Democrat today?
Well, I will say this, both parties are much more to the extremes. The Democratic Party has gone a little bit more to the left, and the Republican Party has gone more to the right. I mean, you people that were considered jokes a few years ago, like Sebastian Gorka is now somebody out there talking about the Republican Party, and people are saying that he represents the Republican Party. The Republicans I know locally don't agree with him. Same thing that Democrats locally will not necessarily agree with the individuals who say they speak for the Democratic Party. One thing I will note in politics is it's become much more nationalized. So issues that usually you wouldn't even have thought of or talked about on the local level get talked about much more because people see it on MSNBC from what would be considered the left, or Fox News from the right. So once it's out there, then people are like, where do you stand on this issue? And my response has always been, well, I may not even have to deal with that issue at all. It's not something I've ever dealt with, so I don't necessarily have to go out there and talk about an issue just because Fox News or MSNBC are reporting it. But it has become much more nationalized. So issues in the past for a race like county executive that were much more centrally located, and the issues associated with what we're doing in Erie County sometimes have become, if not the general public's eye, at least the extremes on both parties, much more important. So when I go out and I talk to voters, they want to know what you're doing about roads, what you're doing about to ensure seniors are provided for, protecting health care for those who need it. That's what people hear. They're not necessarily talking about the same issues that you often see on television. And so I'll run into somebody who will be demanding where I know I stand on an issue, but it isn't even an issue we're talking about because it's become nationalized. So what I would say is both parties have gone a little bit further to the extremes. And there's still a good portion of the community that's right in the middle. So the vast majority of people in Erie County are moderates. The vast majority of people in the United States are moderates. So I think you look at and say, okay, what does the person stand for, and what are they going to do for the community? I'm proud of my record as county executive. We've ended up every year with balanced budgets, and we've reduced the tax rate. Tax rate today is lower than it was when I took office. So if your assessment's the same, you're paying less in county taxes than when Chris Collins was county executive. We've been able to put a lot of money into infrastructure. We've been able to put money into our libraries, money into our senior programs, the things that people want, while still ensuring that we're providing those programs that we have to because New York State mandates them, like Medicaid, temporary assistance for needy families. So we've been able to do things that I think the general public would be very receptive on. I'm hoping that this county executive race is about the issues that matter here in Erie County, not what someone on the right says or someone on the left says, but what the people in Erie County want, which are right in the middle.
Okay. Yeah, it does come down to taxes a lot, because that obviously affects people's pocketbook and personally what they can do with their money. Some years ago, Governor Cuomo kind of made a big deal on the fact that he managed to get a cap on property taxes in the state. Now, interestingly, the state doesn't benefit from property taxes.
Correct.
So he was making a big deal out of the fact that he, put a tax cap on something that he didn't benefit from, that the state, so in other words, he's limiting you guys in the county level and taking the credit for, capping taxes. Was that kind of a political, stunt on his part? And did it make it harder on you as a county level executive?
Well, the tax cap applies to all local municipalities, so school districts,
Right.
towns, villages, cities, and the county. He likes to say it's a 2% tax cap, but it really hasn't been. It's been a tax cap based on the consumer price index, which for most of the time of the tax cap has been much less than 2%, which means my expenses may go up 2 or 3% per year, but the revenues that we can generate can only go up based on the CPI, which the 1 year was 0.56, so it was basically half of 1%.
And you're mandated a lot by the state. So
Correct.
that your spending is out of your hands sometimes, right?
Yeah, that's why I'm very proud that we've been able to end up every year with balanced budgets and be able to keep the tax rate lower, because we can get assessment growth. So, but the assessment growth is what the tax cap is based off of. So I've reduced our tax rate, but our assessed value has gone up because you have new businesses, new buildings, new value for the greater community. And that's good. You want to see new businesses, you want to see new buildings, because then someone else, think about it this way. If someone builds a new $2 million structure in a town, its assessed value is $2 million. And that's $2 million additional dollars that are added to the assessed value, which means everyone else in the town should theoretically have to pay less than they did the year before, because you've got a new building that is added to the value of the community. What the governor did is saying, I'm going to limit the amount of that growth. Now, I understand why he did it, and I think there's a value to it, but he did it on an arbitrary level for every community across New York State. And you shouldn't treat upstate New York the same as you do downstate New York. Long Island is completely different than Buffalo, just like Albany is different than Westchester. So I look at it this way, we're got this great revival going on in our community, but we're not able to capture as much of it as we should, which means that everyone is paying a little bit more of the fair share than they should. I do support the tax cap, but I think it should be just a straight 2% tax cap. The CPI makes it very difficult because the state pushes down mandates to us. Our expenses go on up an average of 2 to 2.5% per year. But if our revenues can't keep track, what ends up happening? We'll have a very difficult time, and I'll have to cut services. I don't like cutting services because the services that we cut are the ones that the public wants. We don't control the mandates, but we control the what I like to call the people's mandates. And when I have to cut money for roads or cut money for seniors or cut money for parks, that hurts us all in the long run.
Well, I think most of our budgets grow from year to year. I mean, it's the nature of things. We spend more money every time we, turn around. There's expenses. Since you've been in office, if I'm correct, spending has gone up in the county something like $2.5 million per year. I'm not sure of that. Correct me if I'm wrong.
But we have increased spending from when I started, but I think what people have to realize is we have union contracts that we have to meet. We have mandates from New York State that are very difficult to meet. We just had a brand new mandate in the last year with regards to what's called Raise the Age. Took 16 and 17-year-old youthful offenders out of the jail, the adult jail, and put them into the youth jail. That's a good thing because you don't want 16-year-olds in there with 55-year-olds that are hardened criminals. But it also means it's an increased cost for us on a local level. So we have increased costs, but we've also increased spending in areas that people want. For example, just roads, we talked about it earlier. We're going to put about $70 million this year in our roads. It's never enough. So if I could put $100 million, I would, but to do that, I'd have to raise taxes, and that's not something I want to do.
Okay, well, that's all we have for this segment. It goes by really quick. I warned you it was going to go quickly. We'll be back, and there's a lot more to talk about. We'll be back right after these messages.